got one. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Now you're welcome, Max. So Callum Hudson-Odoi has been called ashore after 80 minutes, far more acceptable tonight than at the weekend. Reece James just come on. Chelsea still 1-0 up against Atletico. The general sense on Twitter is people wondering why the hell Atletico have not tried to score a goal this evening. It's been that kind of an Atletico performance, seems to be the feeling. Meanwhile, Bayern Munich still 4-1 up away to Lazio. The football coverage on Off the Ball is with thanks to Paddy Power. For information on responsible gambling, visit gamblingcare.ie. Dan McDonald is still with me, as is James Richardson, host of the official Premier League Fantasy Football podcast. James Richardson, hello.
Hello there. How are you doing?
Very well. So this story is what, the high point for the official Premier League Fantasy Football podcast. Aston Villa, team news leaking out, James Grealish injured. And what's happened here? It seems that there's some way for a bot or software of some kind to keep tabs on players who are also working for football clubs, and when the Aston Villa brigade all dump Grealish out of their team, ahoy.
Yes, so there's an account called FPL Insider. I don't know to what extent it's an algorithm, to what extent it's a bot, to what extent it's a spotty fellow with a laptop in an attic, but they monitor the teams which are published when the deadline for team selection passes. Everyone's teams are published. So if you know what a team is called, you can find out who's in it. And they've obviously gone to the bother of finding out who these Aston Villa squad members, but also kind of members of the backroom staff, who their teams are, and various other teams as well. Andy Robertson's one who in the past has caused a certain amount of furore by transferring Mane out of his team ahead of the deadline, ahead of a match, and then we all knew that Mane was probably not going to be playing. So this thing does exist, and people do follow accounts to try and get that kind of marginal gain, to get a little bit of an insight into which players are going to be playing at the weekend and which ones won't. And supposedly, because these 5 Villa staff members had transferred Grealish out, that was how Leicester knew, because the deadline was 6:30 on the deadline for Fantasy Premier League was 6:30 on Friday evening. That was how they knew, a kind of a day and a half or so before their clash with Villa. Leicester were able to prepare for a Grealish less set of villains. I mean, to be honest, as has been pointed out, Grealish hadn't been spotted in training for the previous few days. So there were plenty of other ways this news had got out. But I think for FPL managers, this is manna from heaven, because we're desperate for credibility. We're desperate to feel like we have a role to play in the game, an impact on the Premier League. The Premier League, which we know to be really just a device for furnishing points for our league, has now become aware of our existence.
Well, indeed. I mean, this is the big time. I mean, this is it. You're the centre of your eye of the storm here. This is incredible. I mean, what next? What's going to happen next?
I don't know. Supposedly, Dean Smith, in a fit of pique, has banned those 5 Villa staff members from playing, or indeed any staff members from playing Fantasy Premier League for the rest of this season. Rumours that he was bottom of the Villa mini league, I think, are to be discounted. That's not what this is about. But I imagine that this could be something, if this goes any further, because clearly there is a potential advantage for someone like Leicester in knowing that a big player is out and being able to prepare themselves for that. And managers never want leaks. We've seen that with, obviously Leeds in the past and that Derby business. So I can see how clubs might start to take this seriously and might start to expect their players not to have fantasy teams. Whether that'll actually be what happens, I mean, they'll probably just do it undercover. I mean, it's another form, I guess, of betting on which players will or won't do well. But so many players play it. Not many managers do it, I don't think, probably because they're busy actually managing. But Pep Guardiola, I think, was asked about this, asked about the whole business. He seemed blissfully unaware of what Fantasy Premier League was. But he'll learn, I'm sure.
I can't believe so many players play this. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, I was just going to say, was there do we have, it's almost like a secret club we're trying to find it. Do you know how many players have teams, Because I see one of the reports is suggesting that now they might have to stop players who want to play from including players from their own club on their team, which obviously involves do you have to add in an extra line? Are you a Premier League player? Tick box, yes or no, while you're signing up at the start. But is it widely known?
Yeah, how many there are? My guess would be that around half of the Premier League play.
Stop.
Yeah, really, because I do a show, and a quick plug on fancy.premierleague.com. Well, you might be able to see it on Irish television, I'm not sure. But we do a show every Thursday night called the FPL show, with myself and Jules Breach. And we, in the course of that, are talking about which players you need to get for the weekend. And generally having a particularly entertaining time. We always do a little interview segment with a player from a Premier League club. And sometimes they don't really understand what FPL is, but loads of times they are very switched on about what metrics they need to be picking players by, who they should be recommending. And they'll often talk about who's top in that team, their own team's mini league of FPL. So, Patrick Bamford's another one. The guy will not go through a post-game interview without mentioning what he's done with his team, whether he's dropped himself, whether he gave himself the captain's armband, which, as we all know, will earn you double points.
Well, of course. Indeed.
So I think that I would say at least 50%. There are 8 million people playing this game.
Whoa.
Yeah. Extraordinary, no?
Wow. Is it more popular than I played it in college, and I've stopped. I just don't anymore for whatever reason. I'm rethinking this. I can't believe you think up to 50% of Premier League players who play in the Premier League are also playing Fantasy Manager. This is just blowing my mind.
Okay, so that's the difference. Fantasy Manager, I can't imagine them doing. It's incredibly
fantasy football.
Yeah, no, but absolutely. But I think that's a key difference, because FPL is dead simple. If you're a football player and you actually play against the people that you're picking from, you've got a very good idea of who's in form, who's not in form, who's likely to do well against a given opponent. And also, and this is crucial, you've got bags of free time. Once you've kind of got your tattoo for that week, what are you going to do as a Premier League player? Yeah. I think FPL is a great pastime for them, and it's right up. It's in their wheelhouse. It's another way they can compete with the rest of the squad. I think it ticks all the boxes.
I guess so. I guess the high of having a good week there as opposed to the high of having a good week on the pitch. But then again, I did see Bamford. He was beaming, positively beaming after one game when he knew that the points haul was big. So is 8 million players, is that as big as it's ever been? Is this only going one way? This, am I calling this a hobby, a pastime, a pursuit?
So, 8 million is the record, and that's only recently been reached. So it's curious that the numbers have been going up even during the season. I would have expected that if you didn't start at the start of the season, why would you join in? But I guess people join it just to see how well they can do on a week-to-week basis. Is it going to keep on growing? I think so, although apparently we're going to lose a bunch of Premier League footballers as managers, but it's free and it's great fun, and it makes even games like Burnley against West Brom watchable if you've got skin in that game.
True. Dan, you're still at it, aren't you?
No, I just gave it up a couple of seasons ago. So I did play it for years, but I'd imagine during lockdown, you see, it's become like it's like good, clean fun for Premier League footballers. What else have they left to do? If they tell their mate what the team is going to be, they get in trouble. If you have spot betting stuff going on in lower leagues and gambling and all sorts of stuff, that is the dark side of the game. Give them their fantasy league team at least, without someone hacking it or not hacking it. I assume it's available, but this bot has managed to access it very quickly and put it out there. But
James, I must listen, because in my day it was fairly agricultural, I think. I'm only going back maybe 10 years or so, and there were just certain truths. You picked Morten Gamst Pedersen because that was just a guaranteed value for money buy, and you Frank Lampard for a couple of seasons. It was just silly not to have him in the team. I presume here we are in 2021. People have a lot more data to play around with. So has this become fairly sophisticated?
Yes, there are people. Well, I suppose on one of them actually. There is a kind of entire kind of professional subclass existing off FPL now. There are people who have quit their jobs to become FPL scouts or run FPL blogs, subscription services whereby they offer tips and metrics for people who want to get the slightest advantage in their mini leagues or whatever. You can go very, very deep on this. Most FPL podcasts, not ours, I would stress, but most of them I think run to about 1.5 hours per episode, just because they've got so much stuff to tell you every week. But if you don't want to go that deep, it's dead simple. You know, you just pick your players and then off they go. And quite often, if you just leave them there and stop interfering, they'll do far better than if you continue to meddle. So I think it is a game that is very much accessible at whatever level you want to play it. But yeah, if you want to get sophisticated, my goodness, there's just so much raw data that you can really dive into and you know, rub all over.
So who are the great undervalued players that really should be in people's teams? Yeah, who are like the hidden gems that you've come across over the last while?
Well, I think, I mean, that's the thing. It's increasingly difficult, especially at this time of the year when we've all had a good look at who the players are with 2/3 of the season gone. I mean, the last kind of surprise was Gundogan, who came in and kind of took over the goal scoring at Man City, and it is ridiculously cheap for the points that he was providing.
Yeah.
Probably Dallas. If people haven't heard about Dallas at Leeds, he's the guy. He's the real, I think, the guy who's way outperforming his expected goals, and I mean, he's a defender for a start, but also his price tag. But I think most people are across Dallas by now. I'm not really the guy to ask about this because I'm famously tactically dim about football. But luckily, there is a place that you can find out this kind of stuff with real, genuine experts, and that is the official FPL podcast.
Oh, what a plug. Masterfully done. Before you go, what are you making of this Serie A season? Milan derby, obviously, at the weekend. Lukaku reigned supreme.
Yes, well, he was magnificent. I'm slightly disappointed of Inter run away with it. If you were ever to pick a team that could blow it from here to the end of the season, Inter would be probably the one, because you know the very club song celebrates the fact that they are able to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory at any given moment. But it does look like they have a significant advantage, not only their lead, but the fact that they don't have any European commitments, so they're just plain sailing from here to the end of the season. But it has been really great to see things mixed up. It's been a bit of a slap in the face seeing how Lazio and Juve have got on in this last 16 of the Champions League so far. But we're hoping for better from Atalanta tomorrow against Real Madrid, because that would be really special if the Bergamaschi could say knock Zidane's crew out of Europe. And
what's the verdict on Pirlo and Juve? What's going wrong?
Well, I mean, again, I refer you to my previous answer about my tactical understanding, which is, you know, close to zero. But from what I understand from reading what clever people say, it goes to the fact that he is a manager who likes to play a certain kind of football, and he doesn't have the players to do it. He lacks, ironically, a Pirlo figure, and he's tried various different combinations of players, the sum of which parts might add up to that kind of deep-lying orchestrator, furnisher of attacking play. But as yet, he hasn't found one that will work consistently. One will work for a game or two. Weston McKennie looked like he might be the solution. That hasn't been working out. So I think that this is a team that has been built around Cristiano Ronaldo's goals for so long that it's masked a lot of the kind of other absences, the other flaws in it. Cristiano Ronaldo is now looking like age is catching up with him. He hasn't scored, I think, in 6 games or something now. And I think that's kind of laid bare a lot of the other problems in the team. And you know, there are other issues with injuries. The fact that Dybala's gone missing for this period with injuries has not helped Pirlo. But you know, it's a lot to expect him in what is literally his first ever job in management at any level at all to suddenly be able to kind of sort out this puzzle. I think he will be given time by Juve. There's no way that you bring him in if you're not going to give him time. But fingers crossed, because it would be a real shame if Pirlo didn't turn out to be a genius manager, you know? Yeah.
And does the traditionalist in you look at Inter, Milan, Juve, Roma as a top 4 and think, yeah, look, I like that. There's a certain old school glamour here, which I'm just fine with?
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, particularly the Milanese. Yeah. We need to have the 2 Milanese sides in the Champions League, and hopefully we'll get 5 Italian sides in there. That would be good. But that it would be nice to get the proper sides up there, and a little bit of a renaissance there, particularly, as I say, in the city of Milan.
Very good. Well, listen, thanks so much for coming on and explaining all that to us, James Richardson. Always great having the show. Thanks a million.
Not at all. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thank you. Latest again, we're into injury time in Bucharest. Atletico 0, Chelsea 1. 6 minutes of added time there. There are 4.5 minutes of those 6 played, and Bayern still 4-1 up. Way to Lazio again into added time.
Football on Off the